Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen, welcome back to what was on sale at the grocery store. At the grocery store a couple days ago, big bunker on the end, filled to the brim with stewing beef on sale. And so I went over and I looked at it, and often when you go to the grocery store and there's packages of stewing beef, you don't know what part of the animal it's from. You know it's probably from a tougher part of the animal, you know that it's probably good for stewing. And so there's this bunker and it was all cut up, just labeled stewing beef, and cut up into, little cubes ready for stewing. And so I was looking through it, and then there were some packages that were cut into strips. So they'd only done kind of half the job of cutting it into stewing beef. And then there were packages with larger muscle. And it's like, oh, that's a pot roast. So I've got a pot, I've got a roast, we're making pot roast. So we're gonna start out in this jug, and I have tomato paste, and I'm gonna put that much, about half of the can. You're looking at about a quarter cup of tomato paste. I've got some pepper. I've got some salt. The beef has already been salted and peppered. We'll get back to that in a moment. This is chicken stock, but use beef stock, use vegetable stock, use water, use whatever you've got. I just happen to have chicken stock hanging around today. And white wine. Okay, so white wine. I've made this on the channel before. I went back and I looked 2016. We'll finish it. So I've made this before on the channel, 2016. This is a different take on a pot roast. It's going to have we're going to finish it with cream, and it's going to have a very interesting gravy. Anyway, so I'm using white wine, and there's a reason I'm using white wine. I have a fairly large collection of old cookbooks, and when you go back into the cookbooks from France, 1700s, 1800s, pretty much up until, that period, there's a lot of overlap, so it's very difficult to put a date on it. There's a lot of overlap. That period between World War I and the 1950s, when it starts to shift. But in earlier times, if French chefs or cooks were doing a long, slow braise with red meat, they were using white wine. And there's a few reasons for that, and there's a couple of other theories for that. My thinking is white wine shines a light on all of the other ingredients and says, taste them. It helps all of the other ingredients taste better. It brings a little bit of acidity, and it brings the alcohol to dissolve the flavonoids in all of the other ingredients, lifts them up, and presents them to you. Red wine shines a light on itself and says, taste me, taste me, taste me. It has the alcohol, it has the acidity, but it also has a ton of other flavors that take over. And so when I go back into some of the older cookbooks, like older French cookbooks, they're calling for white wine from Champagne. And they're not calling for bubbly, they're calling for still white wine from Champagne, because this was before bubbly wine from Champagne was a thing or could be replicated. It was accidental at that point. Does that make sense? So I'm using white wine. If you need to use red wine, go ahead and use a red wine. Use any white wine that you would drink. Use a white wine that you like. That was a part bottle that was open in the fridge, and it is a Sauvignon Blanc. But you don't have to use a Sauvignon Blanc. So this is our pot roast. Bought this at the grocery store a couple days ago. Put it on this rack, on this tray. Salt and pepper, left it in the fridge. It's been hanging out in the fridge like that for a couple of days. Not strictly necessary. If you come home from the grocery store and you just want to get it in the oven, salt and pepper it and get it in the oven. You don't have to dry it out. I just had some time, so I did that. I'm not going to brown it. If you've been here before, you know where I stand sort of on browning. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. I find that this is going to go in the oven for almost 6 hours at 300 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to build so much flavor that browning step doesn't really add that much more. You want to brown it, go right ahead. I'm not going to do it. So I've got some carrot, and I'm going to put some carrot down in the bottom of the pot. Same with some onions. Just kind of nestle them in there. couple of mushrooms. Meat on top. That's pretty much it. That's all I put in terms of vegetables. I mean, I'm going to put the rest of these vegetables in, but I would rather boil and mash some potatoes separately for the gravy than put the potato in here. But if you like potato in your pot roast, potato, turnip, rutabaga, parsnip, all of those things would be absolutely fantastic in here. Any sort of root vegetable that will slowly sort of roast and break down over time will add a lot of flavor to it. Do what you like from from that standpoint. I mean, this is just an idea. Pot roast is just a thing. Pot roast has always been sort of a poor person's meal. Tough piece of meat, slowly braised to kind of break down all of the connective tissue, make it soft, make it eatable or edible. And then adding whatever root vegetables and stuff that you had left from the garden. So to that end, I'm using my own carrots, my own onions, and my own garlic. So I've got garlic. It's just minced up. Put that in the pot. I've got some thyme, fresh thyme. I wish I had gone to the grocery store and bought fresh thyme for the patty episode. If you haven't checked out the patty episode, there'll be a link somewhere, or just go to the main channel page and get the patty episode. And at this point, it's just the rest of the veg around the roast. So the rest of the mushrooms, you could chop your mushrooms much finer than I did. Same with the carrots. You could chop the carrots super fine. If that's your thing, go right ahead. Again, onions, I like big chunks of onions, so, I just cut them in half. Please yourself in your kitchen. It's your dinner. And then our liquid. Generally here, I'm looking for 2 cups of liquid. And then the other ingredients that I put in, so the tomato paste, I'm not counting in that liquid. So I sort of split it between wine and stock. So use more stock if you've got more stock and less wine, or vice versa. It's just to build the flavor. And if you don't want to cook with wine or alcohol, totally fine. Leave the wine out. Replace it with more stock. And then maybe about a tablespoon of vinegar into the liquid, just to bring some of that brightness and also help to dissolve some of the other flavors that are going on in here. The vinegar would really help. Of course, do this in your crock pot slow cooker, if you've got one, into the oven. Oven's preheated at 300, and it'll be probably 6 hours before I come back to this. And I mean that, 6 hours, I will not even think about this. But if you've never put your pot in the oven for that length of time, I suggest you lift the lid every once in a while, look inside, and see if you need to add more liquid. I know that I don't need to with this pot. It'll be totally fine. If your pot doesn't have a tight-fitting lid, put a piece of parchment paper over the top and then put the lid on, or a piece of tin foil and then put the lid on, or just come back every couple of hours and top it up with a little bit of water. You don't need to add more stock. The flavor's already there. If you've already used the stock, the flavor's already there. All you've driven off is the water. Add more water. See you at supper time. Okay, here we go. What does it look like? Ooh, that's looking pretty good inside. Okay, so we're going to take some of this out. I'm going to pull the vegetables out to this platter. Here's the thing. I could, and I have in the past, left some of the thyme sticks. We'll get rid of those. Left some of the vegetables in the bottom and then used an immersion blender to blend them into the sauce. And that works out incredibly well. Really adds a lot of flavor to the sauce. But this time I'm going to keep it simple. We're going to pull all of these out. This would certainly be easier if we pulled the roast out first. There we go. Now we can get the rest of the veg out. Okay, all the veg is out. Got some great looking sauce in the bottom here. I'm going to turn this on. We'll bring that up to a simmer. And over here we're going to make the thickener for the gravy. So I've got just some regular all-purpose flour. There we go. And a little bit of whipping cream. Whisk that together. Okay, this is coming to a simmer, so I'll stir it in and thicken our sauce. A little bit at a time, whisk it in so you don't get any lumps. And you may not need to use all of it to reach the kind of thickness that you like in your gravy.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey,
Hey,
Jules.
friends. Well, this is a classic looking dish.
It is pot roast with a
Yes.
tomato white wine cream sauce.
Ooh.
The roast looks a little dry. I bought it. It was only labeled as stewing beef. It was
Okay.
labeled as stewing beef, so I have no clue what muscle it actually is.
Tastes fine.
You know what? It's not dry. It looks dry, but it's not dry at all, is it?
Seems fine.
I'm digging that.
Trying to get my grasp of the flavor of the sauce. It says white wine cream and
White wine cream tomato.
tomato. That would explain the color.
Yeah.
I was like, The tomato and
that.
cream had a nice twist to that.
Yeah.
It's like you made it special.
It's not your mom's pot roast.
No.
It's just a different take on a pot roast. So I've got mashed potatoes inside the house, ready to go. Mashed potatoes, so potatoes boiled with onion, diced up onion, and
Parsnips, carrots?
no, horseradish,
Oh, of course.
and then mashed with butter and cream. So this sauce will go great on it.
I'm trying really hard not to just keep snacking. I'm going to put my hands in my pockets so I don't
Okay,
snack.
classic pot roast is fantastic. If you love classic pot roast, do a classic pot roast. But you can move the flavors outside of the classic. And if you're someone who always cooks with red wine when you do this, try white. Give it a shot. You might be pleasantly surprised. I was, and that's all I do now. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.